In this video, we're going to discuss the subject of microeconomics. So microeconomics is concerned with studying the behavior of individual economic actors. And individuals doesn't just have to mean one person. It can mean families, it can mean workers, it can mean investors, companies, firms. So we're looking at the behavior. And so how do firms make investment decisions? How do individuals decide how much peanut butter and jelly that they want to buy? How do people come together and form markets? How do companies and individuals come together? How do they decide on the price? And are these markets going to be socially efficient? Are they going to produce the optimal level from society's perspective of pollution and other things? We're going to end up with these things called externalities that we'll talk about, where the free market does not produce the optimal level of some product or service. And then also we'll look at how these individual economic actors, they can form industries, particularly with companies. We'll think about oligopolies, monopolies, and competitive markets, and how these companies come together and form these industries, and then how the government's actions, how the government imposing a tax or something can affect all of these individual economic actors. So I just want to give you some examples of different microeconomic topics. So for example, you might look at the household level and say, do households buy more peanut butter if the price of jelly decreases? And so we'll talk about things such as substitutes and complements. I mean, obviously, if jelly is something that naturally goes together with peanut butter in a lot of countries. But we might also ask, we might look at the family level and say, and forgetting money or things like that, or even buying things, we might just think about the decision to have more or fewer children. Right? So when we say that when families' incomes are increasing over time, are people going to start having fewer children? Or are they going to say, well, now we have more income, we can have more children, and we can think about substitutes for children and so forth. And we can also think about, we look at from the firm perspective, we can look at companies and say, okay, if the government were to cut taxes, let's say that the government were to say, okay, we're going to get rid of the corporate income tax, so we're going to cut taxes. Are firms going to respond by hiring more employees? Are they going to invest that money in more machinery? Or are they just going to keep the money as cash? Or what are they going to do? Are they just going to give it as a dividend to their shareholders? So we can look at those things. We can think about with consumers and how they would respond to a tax. For example, we might say, okay, if the government were to impose a tax on yachts, and a yacht is just a luxury boat, if they were to impose a tax on yachts, how are consumers going to respond? And we're talking about consumers, we're talking about buyers, the people that would buy the yacht normally. How are they going to respond? It's going to depend, okay, is there demand for the yacht elastic or is it inelastic and so forth? And we're going to talk about what all those things mean. But basically, this tax, it can depend on what type of good it is. For example, if you tax milk, people might respond differently than if you tax something that's a luxury item such as a yacht. And also we can think about industries in general, right? Not just about the firms, but industries. And so how does the structure of, let's say, the agricultural industry, how does that affect something such as the price of corn? And we're going to talk about all these topics and a lot more in the videos to come.